Today I have a first for you that I'm super happy about, and it is not just my first Xiaomi device review, but also the first time that I'm getting to review a Chinese imported phone. Thanks to the really awesome guys from tradingshenzhen.com that I got in contact with, I am now maybe able to review these on a regular basis, because I've heard so many great things in terms of value when it comes to these Chinese phones, but I could just never confirm that on my own. And unfortunately, I could never really answer the questions that people had when they wanted a comparison between the usual phones that I review and the ones like, for example, from Xiaomi or also Meizu. So this could maybe change now, and today I want to start off with the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4. This is the high-end version with 3GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. There is also a slightly toned-down version with just 2GB of RAM and 16GB of storage. And I would say let's not just waste any more time and see what we actually get. And what I usually always expected these phones to be: looking nice but feeling cheap. And I can confirm you that it is absolutely not true, because it just doesn't look great, it also feels like that, because high quality build, nice beveled edges here, and overall really solidly built. It doesn't creak at all, it feels like a tank, really super solid. Therefore it also feels though a little bit more on the bulky side, and it is a little bit thicker and heavier like the normal phone, but therefore it has a huge battery that it makes up for that, and I can accept that because it feels really nice in the hand with the curve here, and overall really nice, not too edgy or so, really nice grip in the hand. It's just not the smallest one, but for a phablet with 5.5 inches, that is after all to be expected. The aluminum is either grippy or slippery. That's something that you have to decide. I personally like the feel, but in terms of grip, it's not always the best one. The fingerprint reader on the back is actually really fast, but the one thing that I have to complain is the display turn on time, because as you can see, the moment I press and the moment that it actually turns on are quite far apart. The fingerprint reader, as you can see here, actually is absolutely fine. That one is fast and reliable, so no things to complain here. It's only the display turn on time. Here we have the two LEDs, the camera. Here we have the microphone, IR blaster, something you definitely don't see these days all that much, and the headphone jack, same goes for that. Here we have the SD card and SIM card tray, and on the bottom we have micro USB along with the one speaker on the right, and this is just for aesthetics. And on the right side we have the power button along with the volume rocker, both placed very nicely and with a good tactile feedback. Very nicely done, very premium, really nice. Of course we also have the camera and the notification LED here with the rest here, and not maybe the smallest bezels along with the black border that a lot of people don't like at all, but if you get maybe the black version, this could be better. And of course we have capacitive buttons here with the back button being on the right. So overall, all I can say about the build quality is that it's really good, and in terms of design, in my opinion, it looks really beautiful, but it's not the smallest one, but I got to why. Okay, let's check the display. 1080p, IPS, 5.5 inches, and a really nice one indoors, because here you can see it looks really nice. The white point is really great, and if we go into the settings, we can actually see that we even have some extra options here for color and contrast, so you can set the temperature and also increase the contrast if you want to, but in my opinion it's absolutely not necessary, because it is a really beautiful one. Whites is really nice, the blacks are absolutely solid. Viewing angles, maybe not the very best ones, but in normal use, absolutely no problem. And the maximum brightness as well. It was only outdoors when it got a little bit weaker, because there it does, sorry, something I don't really like, and that is boost the contrast to an extreme so you can still see things, but the maximum brightness outdoors wasn't all that good. So here it's definitely a little bit on the weaker side, but if that's a problem, is something that you have to decide. So let's check the sound. Overall, speaker quality is, I would say, just okay, but don't get that wrong, because the maximum volume is fine, but it could be louder after all. For a bottom-firing speaker, the sound is actually quite okay, because it's not too flat or something like that, but it's nothing really out of the ordinary. A lot of speakers these days are that good, so I would say just okay, but it's not really a complaint, it's still fine. About the headphone jack quality though, I have to say I was actually surprised that we get some extra features. For example, as we can see here, if we go into the settings once again, we have the audio settings where we have some extra functions, and you can set different presets if you maybe have a Meizu device, and you can also change the equalizer and have some extra functions. But all it pretty much does is boost the bass. Of course, you can set that on your own in the settings, but the sound itself is quite nice, absolutely okay, but the usual complaint that I have is the maximum volume could be louder if you want to maybe drive some higher end or maybe more demanding headphones. For earphones, it's absolutely fine, but that is the complaint that I have on pretty much any other phone as well. So let's get into the performance here and all the apps. So we have Clear Ground and launch a few of them to see how fast they launch. Maybe not the very fastest launch times. I've seen this already a few times faster, but in normal use it's absolutely okay in my book. As you can see here, it's not that you have to wait for ages or something like that. And then the thing is that I've not expected actually that the performance overall is really good, and I can't say anything else. It's still rendering, but everything else is already super smooth, and especially the browsing performance was absolutely nice. Solid rendering times, really pleasant scrolling, and the same goes for apps like, for example, here Phoenix, because even if you scroll really fast, I don't really see a hint of lag. Some minor micro stutters here and there, but in normal use this is something that you wouldn't really ever notice. And especially apps, for example Palaber, are on some phones really badly behaving, but as you can see here, this is all just fine. The same goes for the overall experience. I have to say it's a really nice device, especially with the 3 GB of RAM. Multitasking was absolutely fine. Maybe not quite as good as on stock Android device, but nothing to really complain about. I was really pleased with the performance. Of course, Google Plus is heavier, and here you will see some stutters, but as you can see here we have the recent apps. Maybe not the snappiest device if it comes to app changes, but it's definitely very smooth and an overall really good experience. Something that I did not expect. I thought maybe they're due to the MIUI UI overlay, it gets bogged down. Not really the case. And actually something that is also really nice to see is the gaming performance, because it was super solid at all times. Quite high frame rates, maybe not the highest one overall, but absolutely more than playable at all times. Almost no frame drops and all, especially fast games could get handled absolutely just fine. Apps like, or games like Asphalt ran just absolutely nice. Heat was no concern in my opinion, because it gets warm of course, but what phone doesn't get that? And it wasn't to an extent that I noticed some kind of performance drop. So really nice. And if we check more example, games like Modern Combat, absolutely nicely playable. Sometimes maybe if you play for a longer time, the screen seems to dim a little bit, but that was also due to my harsher studio lights that could happen. So I would say let's get to the battery, and if I don't hit the wrong button, you can see the charge time was 2 hours and 25 sorry, once again, for a full charge, which is absolutely respectable because it is after all a 4100 milliamp hour battery, and those just take a little bit longer, and the actual battery life is really good. It's not as good as it could be with a battery that big, but it was overall super convincing, because on a normal day I could get easily 6 hours in mixed use with a brightness of 40%, which was absolutely bright enough for me because I use always a fixed brightness, and he was really pleased. On Wi-Fi you should get even more, I guess 7, maybe even 8 hours should be possible, because I tend to drain my devices a little bit faster, but this for me is already a solid 2-day phone, and I would expect you to even get almost close to 6 hours here as well, because the standby drain was absolutely solid. Now let's get to the one thing that could maybe be not all that great for a few people, and that would be the software, because a lot of people still complain about it, and yes, it's something that you definitely have to get used to. And I want to point out the flaws here first, because one thing that I've noticed in the display, I don't see any setting for the display turn off time, because usually there's delay of 30 seconds, 1 minute and 2 minutes and so on. I don't see that option anywhere. This is something that I've missed really badly. And also if we check, for example, in the settings for the language, you can't turn off the spell checker. And if you only use one language, this is fine, but me using 2 languages usually at the same time, I get the spell correction for words that are actually right. So this is something that I would have wished for not to be there, but it is. As you can see, this is the default theme, but we have a theming engine. It actually makes quite a difference here, because as you can see here, you swipe once, you see the weather, you can also see the search, you have the quick settings, and you can rearrange those. And if you swipe once again, you see more of them, and as you can see here, this is how you do it. And of course you can rearrange them and add some more and so on. Of course we have the brightness slider. If we go into the settings, it definitely looks better, because the last time that I've actually used MIUI was like version 3 or 4. So quite a lot of things have changed. There are of course battery and performance changes, because there is a performance mode that I didn't use though, because for the one reason that if you have that on, there is this constant notification that was just annoying for me, and the performance on its own already was so good that I never felt like I had to. Of course you can change, for example, things like here the notifications if you want the swipe down to be separate or not, toggle notifications and all that. So it is very, very similar to something like EMUI these days, which will get closer to stock Android. I'm not quite sure what will happen here, but it needs some time to getting used to. But once that period is over, it's absolutely acceptable. Of course, if you want an app drawer, just get something like Nova Launcher, should be no problem. And the first 2-3 days I thought I won't like this, but usually I don't go often in the settings and all that. Of course the missing settings are something that is a little bit unfortunate to see, but that's the case. So I would say let's get to the camera and let me switch so we can take a look at some of these. Okay, so about the selfies first, I have to say really, really nice and sharp. Of course, as you can see here, the balance, the white balance of my face isn't always right, and especially with harsh sunlight actually it does quite okay, and I have to say it looks definitely pleasing, actually very good for a phone of this price range, definitely. And this maybe doesn't look all that good, but for indoor light situations this is actually still a very good quality. And the thing though is low light quality is not all that great, because this is with a flash still okay, but once we turn off the flash, as you can see here, white balance is completely tripped off. There's a lot of noise and it's just not sharp anymore, as we can see here. Definitely seen better results. So it's mostly the low light capabilities where it lacks a little bit, as you can see here. But once we go outside, it actually surprised a lot, because as you can see here, this is with tap to focus and this is without. So sometimes you need that, but usually the autofocus work very reliable, as you can see here, and we get really nice pictures. Of course this one looks a little bit oversaturated or clipping, but I've not seen a phone that could get this right. But as you can see here, nice and detailed, no details getting lost, and as you can see, a very nice, sharp. Maybe sometimes it could feel a little bit over sharpened, but I definitely prefer that look over something else. And as you can see, even the landscape photos, really nice and detailed with no details getting lost, nice saturation, nice color balance, and same goes here as well. So this picture looks also absolutely okay. The clouds are visible and all that, and even if there's a lot going on the screen, like for example on this one, everything seems to be nice and sharp in focus, and the autofocus is actually super reliable and it does a good job, as you can see here, nice, sharp, and I really like the outcome. I did not expect it to be good, because I heard some not that great things about it, and yes, it does need a lot of light to get the best pictures, because in lower light situations, the darker it will get, the worse the pictures will get. But if you have solid conditions, you will, in my opinion, get really, really nice pictures, and I can't really say anything else. Nice, sharp, everything that's done right. I could not complain. Shutter speeds were absolutely fine. Maybe not the very fast one, not on a flagship level, but considering this is a like sub $200 phone, even in, as you can see here, sometimes mixed light situations, it knows to deliver. Where it quite tanks though, I have to say, is the video quality, because as you can see here, this is 1080p with 30 frames and it doesn't really look all that great. It's still mostly sharp, and the autofocus works really reliable, and you just need to stop for a second to get that picture done. But I can't get over the fact that this looks a little bit blurry and we don't really see all that many details. So whatever you do, of course there is some digital image stabilization, no optical one, but the video, I don't know what they do. So I've seen the issue already on some Huawei phones. So Chinese manufacturers seem to be a little bit behind, because on the screen it looked really nice, but once you see it on a monitor or something like that to actually check the quality, I was a little bit underwhelmed, a little bit disappointed, because it looked actually quite solid, since the autofocus works reliable and the colors seem nice and the video is smooth and all that. But in the end, this is just not what you see on the monitor, and I think that is good enough for the camera. Actually surprisingly impressive for pictures. It just fails to deliver when it comes to the video. Now, I would say let's check the pros and cons here. And I want to just quickly go through them. And I usually start off with the negative sides to tell you that they aren't actually that bad. Maybe sometimes slightly bulky. As I said, for the battery size and the device size, it is still absolutely acceptable. Display on turn on time was slower. Display outside, not all that impressive. The just okay speaker is something that you shouldn't really be bothering about because it's still good. MIUI is not for everyone, needs some getting time used to. Settings missing, I said that as well. Video camera quality wasn't good, and no LTE band 20 if that's important for you. For me, it wasn't all that great because all that important because I only have 20 megabits on LTE anyways, and without I have like 13, 14. So it wasn't too big of a difference, but therefore the positive qualities are that I'm not seeing anymore. So I will just do this out of my head. Really premium build quality, display nice inside. Performance actually really good because it was mostly completely lag free, maybe just not super snappy, but absolutely consistent, which is something that is more important for me these days. Solid gaming experience, great battery life, absolutely super solid here, so don't worry about that. Pictures look nice. Software, after all, is capable and better than it was ever before. And then, of course, something I didn't even mention or list, value, because it's really great, and it brings me already to the value, being at already 16 minutes now. It is really good, because this phone, depending on which version you get, costs from around $160 to $200, of course, plus shipping or import taxes if you need those, or have to pay. Not sure what's going on here. And this is a really great value because I've not really reviewed any phones at a $200 price range that were that good. And that's why I always wanted so desperately to review these Chinese supported phones to see if they can deliver or kind of crush the competition that is usually available in stores. Of course, there's always the thing, do you want to import? Because I'm not quite sure how things are about warranty and so on, because I've never imported a phone on my own. So this is something to keep in mind. But if you are willing to get that, or if you have imported a phone once before and you know what you're getting into, I was surprised, I was impressed what I got here, because if I consider less than $200 or even a little bit over, let's say with the highest possible import taxes or whatever shipping, this is like maybe $230, but usually on sale, especially for trading Shenzhen, a lot of times does these kind of daily sales or kind of price drops. You will get this definitely for 200 around with the higher end version. I would say definitely go for the 3GB version with 64, because then you have plenty of storage, and 3GB of RAM definitely will help you in the future. And nothing else to say. If I would just compare this with any other $200 phone that I've reviewed so far, I can't really think of anything. Especially, for example, here would be to call out the Honor 5X that costs around the same, and it is nowhere near in terms of qualities of that. Of course, something that was usually my $200 recommendation for a normal phone size was the Honor 5C, which in some ways is a little better. The display was better, the sound was a little bit better, but performance wasn't all that great and the camera was better. So if you consider this to be in that price range, you get so much phone for so little money, and that makes me so excited to review as many as possible phones of this kind in the future. And I think I've covered it well enough. Highly impressed from these Chinese phones. I really want more, because they are not widely available. That is the one downside as well. And of course, a lot of people have a problem with band LTE-20 missing, but it is what it is. Highly impressed. If you have liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or something like that, leave the links or leave a comment down below, and maybe check out tradingshenzhen.com if you're from Germany, Austria or Switzerland. But then I guess you will just watch the German video. Wish you a nice day. Until next time, bye.